So can I tell you that I remember learning that, I don't know what it's called, but when I was a kid, learning what happens, the phrase of, when you assume you make an ass out of you and me, I remember this specifically, how I learned this. And that's what we're talking about today. The assumptions that you make in your business and how they will affect you when you're trying to achieve goals. So imagine you're an OBM and you've reached the point where you are not really so into doing the implementation anymore, right? It's like your clients are fine, your business is fine. You just want to move on and do more strategy. You're not really into, okay, updating the ClickUp, doing the problem solving, executing tasks, like no more tasks, more strategy. So you're like, okay, if I want to do more strategy, how do I get there? So you look around, you see what are other OBMs doing who have gotten there. And then you're like, oh, like they want to grow. They don't want to do the implementation anymore. So it looks like a lot of them have built agencies. They hire other people to do those things. They build teams and they move themselves more into this leadership strategy role. And because you've seen, oh, this is what people are doing, right? You look at their business and say, okay, that's how I get there. So you decide, I'm going to build an agency. So you didn't necessarily sit down and think like, I really want to run an agency, but because it was the obvious route to the thing that you wanted, that's an assumption that you made. That's how you get there. And that's the assumption that I want to talk about today. Because your goal could be right, but what if the path that you're taking to get there is not right for you? So how do we do this? When I think about goals and whatnot, a lot of times I see people confusing two things. It is what you want and what you think you need to do to get that thing, but they're not the same. So in this example, the goal was to do more strategy, less implementation. The agency was not the goal. The agency was one way that other people have gotten and achieved that goal. And because you have seen that route work, you start to think like, okay, like this is the way to get there, right? And that can be useful. Looking what other people have done can absolutely give you ideas. But the problem is when you just don't put much thought behind that and you think like, okay, that's how I get there. That's the way. Because when you blindly follow what others are doing, you don't stop to think about if it makes sense for you. And that has repercussions that I'm going to get into. So then the goal changes from, oh, I want to do more strategy and less implementation to, I want an agency. And you don't think like, oh, I've decided that building an agency is the best thing for me specifically to get out of implementation. You just think like, okay, I don't want to implement, I want to strategize. So that means that what do I need to do? I need to hire a team. I need to build SOPs. I need to start thinking about how I actually build this agency. And there's no more deeper reasoning. There's just the doing. Like, okay, this is how I get there, right? And I have seen this recently with two clients. So one in expansion and one in a business audit. Both were wanting essentially the same thing. Both of them said, I want to get out of doing so much implementation and do more strategy. And both of them came to me and both said, I would like to have an agency. And on the surface, of course, that made sense, right? If you don't want to do implementation, you need somebody to do the implementation. If you want to grow, maybe you need more capacity. And an agency is one way to create that capacity. An agency is one way to get out of doing implementation. But all it took was a few questions from me to see and realize and help them to realize that neither one of them actually wanted to live the day-to-day life of running an agency. It wasn't the agency that lit either of them up. One of them realized that, she didn't actually want to manage a big team or focus her day on getting new agency clients. She actually really was more passionate about systems and problem solving and doing the deeper work. So it wasn't necessarily all implementation, but it was the level of implementation that mattered to her that she wanted to get out of. Right? She didn't need to build a team to escape implementation. She needed to stop building the simple, repetitive implementation into the offers that she was selling and do the things that she really wanted to do. And the other person, after a few questions, realized that, well, it wasn't necessarily an agency that she wanted, because she could hire maybe just one person to do implementation if needed. She really liked having a small, lean business, and she would be able to do more strategy, have somebody maybe do the implementation and be able to do the things she wanted to do. Both of these people said, I would like to have an agency. After a few questions, they realized that, no, that's not actually what I want. And in order to get to what I want, I can do it in this other way instead. And they both came to very different conclusions about the way to get to that same place, right? Neither one of them had come to me and said like, I don't want an agency. You know what I mean? They hadn't asked themselves the question. They asked, how did I get out of implementation? And they looked around at how other people were doing it, and they adopted that answer. And that is what I invite you to look at in your own business when you are making goals, when you are making decisions. So let's do that now. Let's bring this back to you. So think of one thing that you want in your business right now. What is one goal that you have? You have it? Okay. Now ask yourself, what am I assuming that I need to do to get that goal? What is my assumption? What is the path that I think I have to take to get there? What have you decided you need to do? What is the action to get that goal? Maybe you decided, okay, to get that goal, I need to hire. Maybe you need to create a particular kind of offer to get to your goal because that's what those offers look like that achieve the results you want. Maybe you need to stop doing something. Maybe you need to build something new. But then ask, okay, this idea that I have on the path to get there, where did that come from? Did somebody tell you directly? Did you watch other people go down that same path? Did you learn that this is what next level people do? Did it work for you at an earlier stage of your business? Or have you simply seen that path so many times that that's just the way to do it? Right? Like, what's the reason behind it? Where did that idea come from? And then ask yourself, if that weren't the only way, what else might be possible? And you don't need a perfect answer. Like, give yourself permission to just dream, just say anything that comes to mind. And so going back to the example that we've been talking about, if the goal is to get out of implementation, the assumption is, well, I need somebody else to do it, so I need a team, I need an agency. Where did that idea come from? Maybe it is because that's what you've seen everybody else do. Maybe it's because when you look up, how do I do this? That's the answer that comes up, in Google or whatnot. That answer was for me. That happened to be. But if that weren't the only way, what else could be possible? Maybe I could create more strategy-focused offers. Maybe I could hire just one person to help. Maybe I could change the way my existing offers are structured. And maybe there's some other option that I haven't even thought of yet. And that's the openness, that's the shift that I'm looking for. For you to move from, I have to do this thing, this is the way, to, I could do this. Right? I can almost guarantee that the best, most aligned business decision will come from the I could and not the I have to, or this is the way. And why does this matter? Because listen, you can successfully build the agency, you can build the team, you can create the new offer, and then realize later that, wait, I don't actually enjoy this version of my business. And if you scroll all the way back in this podcast feed, but please don't, because, that was the beginning. Not that great. But if you scroll way back, I interviewed so many people who I've heard the same story over and over again. They did just that. They either blindly listened to their coach who said, oh, you should create this offer because this is what sells. Or they saw that, oh, this is the way that everybody else is doing this thing, and that's how you achieve that goal. I mean, I did that for myself, like I mentioned, a couple of times, right? I created a VA agency because I was getting too many clients. And I said, oh, what do I do to grow my, I Googled away, what do I do? And that was like literally the answer. There were no other answers in Google, and the same thing when I created my OBM offers and my offer, and I focused on being a monthly retainer, having monthly retainer clients, hourly retainer clients, because that was the way that I was taught. This is how you do it. This is how you have an OBM business, and I didn't think beyond that. Like, does that fit me? Does that fit the life that I want to live? Does that really capitalize on the things that I'm amazing at? And And side note, I literally have nothing against agencies, right? If you want an agency, let's build you an agency. But you have to be excited about what your day-to-day looks like when you're an agency owner, right? You would need to know what that looks like and be like, oh, this is what I want to be doing, not just the result. Because if you're not excited about the day-to-day, you're going to end up like all those people I interviewed, burning things to the ground and starting again. And like me, I did that too a couple times. So it was like, for me in particular, it wasn't until after I created my little agency that I was like, wait, why am I doing this? I don't actually love the day-to-day of this, of what I'm doing now. And so I burned that down and got a little closer to what I wanted, which was the OBM, and then the hourly retainers. And after a while, I was like, wait, this isn't necessarily what I want. So I went through so many iterations of this. And I did that so I can tell you that that's not the route to go. Right. And so in the end, the strategy, is not, it's just that you didn't stop to ask whether it was your strategy. Building an agency is not bad, but is it for you? And that is so important. Because again, nothing inherently wrong with an agency, nothing inherently wrong with having a team, nothing inherently wrong with creating a course or a new offer or changing your niche. The question is not, does this work? Because everything freaking works. Everything works. The question is, does this work for me, for what I want? Does it work for my strengths? Does it light me up when I think about what my day-to-day looks like? Why am I excited to get on discovery calls and get on social media and talk about this thing? Does that light me up? And also, it's not about finding the easier way. Sometimes the harder path is the right way for you. Sometimes you do want all of these things that take some extra work, that take some extra involvement and whatnot, and that's fine. But the point of all of this is to make that choice on purpose, because it fits the business you want to run, because it fits the life you want to have, and not do it because it's something you've seen other people do and that felt like the way, or it felt like, oh, if I want to become an OBM, this is what that has to look like. This is the offer because that's what I see, that this is what OBMs do, or anything else, of that matter. It doesn't have to be like that. Your business does not have to follow the same architecture as the businesses that you're seeing other people run. I also would argue that it will probably be even more successful if there's something unique about it. If there's something that you are passionate about, that's how you get a sustainable business. That's how you get clients that you love, right? And all of those things. So before you decide what needs to change in your business, start here. Ask yourself, what do I want? And then, what am I assuming that I need to get it? And finally, what else might be possible? Because those answers might be a lot further apart than you think right now. And if they are, it's not that your goal was different. You just need to figure out your own path. And one, that is exactly what I help people do. And two, if this is you and you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I've made a lot of business decisions. Maybe they just happened and maybe I made them based on what I thought I was supposed to do and not sat with them myself. I will invite you to something that I created for this. It is the Slow Morning Studio. It is a free 5-day email experience and just 5 exercises, 1 exercise per day, 5 minutes per day. And the idea is to give you some space to step back from all of the advice, all of the outside noise about what your business should look like and start paying attention to you. Because before you decide what your offer should look like, what your client should look like, how you want to grow, or what's the next step, the next thing you need to change, I think you need to know what you're building towards, right? And so if that sounds useful right now, join the Slow Morning Studio. It's really good exercises. You can click on dancingleafsolutions.com/slow-morning-studio or click on the link in the show notes. And so with that, we will stop making assumptions and not be asses anymore. And I will see you next week. That's a wrap on today's episode, and thank you so much for listening. If anything we talked about today made you think, okay, well, what does this actually look like in my business? That's exactly what a free business audit is for. In just 45 minutes, I'll help you identify your unstructured expertise, pinpoint what's keeping you capped, and map out what your signature method could look like. There's a link in the show notes to grab your spot, and I will see you in the next episode.